One little bitty tidbit that I want to share with you before we leave the topic of UDFs and views and continue on in the course is the idea of IP. You know what IP is? I don't mean IP address. I mean IP as we talk about it in the software world. I'm talking about IP is intellectual property. Right? What do we developers care about IP? This is our source code is our IP. Right? This is the implementation of our ideas. Now, some of you work for software companies and internal projects, and you don't ever have any IP of your own, or you don't have any care if somebody saw your source code. Like, who cares if somebody saw a little bitty view in a nonsense database? Others, though, will be responsible for developing databases that will be deployed at client locations. And they don't want those clients to be able to reverse engineer their own copy of the database. Or they don't want a competitor to be able to get a copy of their database and basically have all their work done for them. Be able to figure out, hey, what's all those fancy algorithms that they're using for data mining? And they don't want them to be able to see it. So let's talk about how to protect your IP using encryption. Now, coming back over here, we need a blank slate here because we want to be able to understand two things. One, how your source code is stored in the SQL Server, and two, how to encrypt. Okay. All right, you ready? Okay. So let's go back to the LearnItFirst database. And let's just talk about what's in the sys schema, the views, the catalog views here. We can see that we can see all SQL modules and all views. These are two of the things that you and I are going to care about here. Modules, what it refers to as a module, and routines. Routines, these are your UDFs, your stored procedures. We can say here all modules here, and you can start seeing the actual source code. See, this is the code that we were running under. We can then come under here and say, we can define it to say, I want to see where the object ID is equal to whatever the object ID is for the numbers table. Take that out, sorry. So now I'm just looking at the definition. And if I switch it over to the text view, so if I say results to text and I change it to just definition, I can really get a better formatted layout. Okay? So now I can just copy and paste. Okay. Now there's other ways we could do this. We could say SP help text and we could say numbers table. There are limitations with a few of these in terms of how many of the actual values it will bring back. Like it may only bring back 1,000 or 2,000 characters when there is actually more. But the idea is I don't want people to be able to see the definition. How can I protect my IP? How can I protect my source code? Okay, well, this is a twofold process. So, two steps to protect your source code. One, let me actually make this a multi-line comment here. It probably should be 3 steps. Yeah, let me make it 3 steps here. Okay. One, create all functions, all of your IP. Let me just use that as a generic here. In files, .SQL files. Okay. And store these in a Windows security protected folder. How would I say this? I want to say where only you and the other developers in the team have access to it, but what's the pithy good way to say it here? And store these in a Windows security protected folder. I don't know how else to say it. So that only necessary developers and admins have access. Now, 2, use source code management software. So we want to use something like Git or maybe Subversion, some sort of a team development software that allows us to view the versions of the files, and we can roll back to a previous version. We can compare today's version of this file with the previous version. Okay. And then 3, encrypt these objects. Golly, Scott. In SQL Server. Okay. Now, I could expand this to say optional number 4, optional. Okay. Keep an unencrypted, I do this myself, copy of the database with only sysadmin level access or high developer level. This way I can load it up. I don't have to go into Subversion or Git or look at some other external file. I can just look at the database. Okay, that's it's your call whether or not you want to do that. And then the other one would be number 5. I mark it as optional, but I don't know. Backups, 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 right? Take lots of backups. As of right now, okay, if you encrypt your source code using the technique that I'm going to show you, I'm not aware of repeatable techniques that can consistently break it down. There might be techniques that I'm not aware of. There might be techniques that work now, but then a hotfix gets issued and they won't work again. So be very cautious. If you encrypt something, plan on never decrypting it. That's why it is so important that you put these in files and then you use some sort of source code management software to manage them. And then you do your backups. Okay. All right. So let's talk about this now. Let's now create a function, dbo.testme. We'll say it returns an int, and it's not important what the function does. So it returns the number 4, or ret runs it, and we say go. Now, am I going to be able to see the source code of the get test me function? Absolutely. We could say select definition from sys.all modules, SQL modules, where object, all right, we did this already, where object ID equal object ID. Sorry, I should have this all written out, but test me. And so sure enough, we are able to see it. Let's now talk about how to encrypt it. I'm going to have to alter it. I can do this as part of the create function, but since I've already created it, I can't. Alter function with encryption. That's the line of code that encrypts. Okay, there is no with decryption. Okay, with encryption. Now look at it again. Get null. Okay, we try to access this with SP help text. Then you can't actually see it. You've protected your IP, but there's no decryption. So be very, very careful.